so many good things had happened on this channel last week as soon as the video went out that I wasn't able to mention it there, so I'm gonna say it now. For one, Nimona Superheroes hit 1,000 views, the channel hit its first 100 subscribers, and I think if you include the shorts, this is our 100th video? I'm not too sure about that one, but oh my god, thank you all so much. This is amazing, and you are all so awesome. And today, in a kind of celebration, we're going to be making a part 2 to Nimona as superheroes, since we left out 2 key players in the overarching plot of the story. And so today we're going to be taking the 2 antagonizing forces of Nimona, that being the Director and Goldenloin, and turning them into supervillains, altering their stories and character designs to match. And the stories will be loosely connected to those of Nimona and Boldheart from the first video. But without further ado, let's get started. Majesty City was changing. Traditions were fading away and the lines between city districts were blurring. Everybody in the city, no matter who they were or where they came from, finally had equal opportunity to be anything they wanted to. The mayor of the city saw it was time for a new age, one that would lead to happiness and prosperity. And he was right. Overall, the city was a much more positive, friendly, and accepting place to be. Unfortunately, not everyone was happy with the new direction that the mayor was taking the city. The director, who worked under the mayor at the city hall, saw these changes as a slippery slope to disaster. Sure, people were happy now. What if someone wasn't so kind? What if a monster came in and destroyed everything she and the mayor had built to make Majesty City into? The director tried to convince the mayor that these decisions were a mistake, but the mayor had firmly believed in his ideals and wouldn't budge. The director wouldn't sit by and watch the mayor's mistakes bring the city to ruin. The metaphorical lines between the city districts created a wall to protect from disaster, and now that wall was starting to crack. The director got to work immediately. The only way she was going to keep the city from falling apart was if she was the one running it. The first part of the director's nefarious plot was to take out the mayor while also making sure nobody knew it was her doing. She crafted a mind control device that she hid in a cane and a matching command headset, which evidently was not as easy to hide. Taking the device, she took possession of a police officer to carry out the assassination while the mayor was giving a speech. It was almost perfect, but while he was escaping, the police officer was spotted by a coworker who got a little too suspicious, and she had to continue controlling the man until he escaped his pursuers. When the coast was finally clear, the director had the police officer head back to her lab, figuring he could be of some use later. With the mayor taken out and the people of the city in chaos, the director was easily able to swoop in and take control as Majesty City's new leader. With everyone panicking over the death of their leader, it was a cakewalk for the director to slowly re-implement the older policies of the city, rebuilding the imaginary lines that separated the different districts. The wall protecting the city was cracked, but now it was standing strong once again. The director stayed in power for years to come, despite the best efforts of a vigilante named Nimona, trying to take her down and restore Majesty City to its short-lived era of prosperity and acceptance. Now, design-wise, I really like how the director turned out. I was going for a very Lex Luthor KyngPin, Marvel KyngPin, not me. Very Lex Luthor KyngPin-inspired design because the power-hungry nature of those 2 villains, I felt really fit into the character of the director, both in the movie and actually the graphic novel too. In the overall drawing, however, there are a few things that could use some work. There are a few areas that I felt didn't turn out as I wanted them to. The overall proportions were just a little wonky, and the front hand is probably a little too big, and for some reason it didn't end up looking like a hand as much as it did in the sketching stage, which was weird because I was very happy with how I sketched it out, but then the line art just kind of destroyed it. I don't know. I would need to go back and like redo even the sketching for that hand to make it look a lot more than what I expected it to. The pose itself, too, also became a lot more static than I originally intended, which is something I correct for in the next piece, which we'll get to that. But despite a few bumps in the sketching and inking stage, I think the piece overall was saved by the lighting. I tried something new, but also something that I mentioned in a sense in the Ghost Freak drawing from last week, in where I chose more stylized lighting, for lack of a better word, than what I would normally do by making the main source of light coming from the orb in the cane and the lightning shooting out of the orb. And so I used that as the main and almost only light source. So I got to experiment with much harsher lighting and shadows than I would usually work with. And I think it turned out very well for a roughly first attempt, because I'm sure I've done it before. But looking back on it, I can feel that I'm not very confident when it comes to the shadow parts of it. I'm not... if there's this one really bright light source on one side of a character, then the other half should be almost completely in shadow. And you can see, especially in the actual neck down parts, I'm not very much. There's very harsh shadow on the face, and I feel like that is something that could have carried down to the rest of the piece. Writing the story, too, was also very interesting because, at least in my opinion, the director is already a very supervillain-like character with the assassination attempt to try and get in power and then keep everything the way it was. It's very Lex Luthor to begin with, and I'm going off of the movie right now, but it's very Lex Luthor, like, oh, at least to my understanding, he doesn't like Superman because he's scared of him. Maybe, I forget what the actual motive of Lex Luthor is, but it was something along those lines. So it was like all the elements were laid out for the director's story, but I had to put them in a different order, but one that still made sense. Basically, all of this rambling is just a roundabout way of saying, I made the feet too big in this one. Adam Golder didn't remember anything from the last, well, he didn't know how long it was. What he did know is that one moment he was working as a police officer protecting the mayor during one of his speeches, and the next moment he was in an abandoned warehouse full of weird science equipment. He didn't know where he was or how he got there, nor was he aware of the fact that he had just unwillingly assassinated the same mayor he was on the job to protect. He tried to walk around the warehouse to try and find an exit, but his stroll was cut short when he heard a loud metallic clang. He looked down at his wrist and he saw that he was handcuffed to a pole in the warehouse. Now he had even more questions. Who brought him here and why? What did they want with him? The answers wouldn't come for hours. As the sun set and night dawned, the door to the warehouse finally opened and the director walked in. The pile of questions Adam had never ceased to grow, to the point where he couldn't keep them to himself anymore. Adam spouted question after question at the director, not caring that he wasn't giving her any time to answer. She didn't seem to be bothered by the onslaught of inquiries being thrown at her, though. Instead, she just simply waited for him to finish. She explained to him that he had tried and succeeded in assassinating the mayor. She didn't know what had compelled him to do such a thing, but she was able to apprehend him and take him back to her lab, which of course, now that he's seen it, he wouldn't be able to leave it. The director slammed her fist on a nearby table and let out a string of curses. She was going on about how she wasn't able to prevent Adam from taking out the mayor. Adam couldn't make sense of anything that was happening. Why would he want the mayor dead? He thought he agreed with all the choices and policies that were made, but he couldn't remember anything. Did the mayor do something he disagreed with? What would be so bad that Adam would resort to killing? It wasn't adding up, but the director didn't have a reason to lie. Adam had one more question for the director. What was he to do now that he was a wanted man? Whether he remembered it or not, the city believed he was responsible for killing the mayor. His job was gone. His family and loved ones were surely gone as well. He had nothing. As tears formed in Adam's eyes, the director returned from the table. But this time she wore a weird device on her head and was holding a cane. Her demeanor was completely different as she spoke. She told him there was no reason to keep up the charade. Although Adam did indeed kill the mayor himself, it was the director who made him do it. She had mind-controlled him to take out the mayor so that she could step into power and steer Majesty City away from the crumbling infrastructure it was becoming. The wall that held the society together would be strong once again. Adam was filled with rage. Every question he had was answered in an instant. His whole life was ruined because of her. He had nothing left, all because he was one out of the many police officers that she just so happened to pick to carry out her dirty work. Adam tugged at the handcuffs, keeping him tied to the poles, shattering the chains. He ran to tackle the director for all she had done to him. The power she wanted came at a cost, and she was going to pay for it right then and there. But the director didn't flinch. Instead, she just raised her cane, and the gem at the top split open, revealing a glowing orb surrounded by arcing bolts of electricity. Adam stopped dead in his tracks, entranced by the light. He was once again under the mind control of the director. The director knew she made a good choice bringing Adam back to the warehouse. His fiery spirit would definitely serve her well during her reign of Majesty City. There was just one slight hiccup. News networks had spread the fact that Adam was the mayor's killer like wildfire. If she was going to have him work for her, his face couldn't be seen. And so, the Golden Lion was born. Adam became the director's personal assassin, wearing a ninja-like gi with a lion-inspired designs that only exposed his eyes and hair. Most of the time, he remained under the director's mind control, which made it very easy when the director went up against Nimona, as she could simply release him from the mind control and have Adam plead for his life. I cannot tell you how pleased I am with this one. As you saw at the beginning of this piece, I struggled to come up with a good pose that I was really feeling, and just none of them were doing it for me, especially when it came to the legs. I really didn't know where they were supposed to go, so I had pulled up some swordsman references, like dynamic swordsman poses on my second monitor, and used that to kind of inspire how I wanted Ambrosius to move, and I came up with what we have here, which was a very interesting challenge because I've been wanting to draw something with this lunging at the camera type pose, but I could never really understand how the body was supposed to be angled, like how the chest and the stomach kind of like went into a cone shape sort of thing. Enter the godsend that is reference images. And because this was such a challenge to draw this pose, I was very hesitant to move on to the line art in this piece. As you can see, I did a couple of passes of sketching because I wanted to make sure that everything was just right before moving on to the final piece. This one was a lot of fun to draw, and the story was a lot of fun too to write. I didn't want to make Ambrosius or Golden Loin a straight-on villain because that's not really his character in either medium of Nimona. In the movie, he's just following what he believed were the knight's ideals of, I believe her name was Glorith, and in the graphic novel, as far as I can remember, it's been a bit since, he was just kind of serving as a knight under the director. I guess he was a little more, I don't know, but it definitely in the movie, he was very much like, oh, these are just my ideals. This is what I've stood for my whole life. I've never thought to question it. And so I didn't want to make him like oh, he's just purely villain evil like Joker or someone. I wanted to make his villain story very out of his control, which I like because I was able to tie it into the director's story from the first piece. Something I really wanted to do with the first Nimona video. I wanted to tie Nimona and Boldheart's stories together, but I just wasn't able to work it out at that time. But here we have Golden Loin as a supervillain, the Golden Lion. I gotta say, overall, I'm pretty happy with these ones, especially a Golden Lion. He's really cool, but I can go on forever about how the drawing I made was really cool and I really like it. And I'm sure I'll say the next thing next week. But I want to take this time instead to just say thank you, because it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling, because yeah, 100's like a small number in comparison, but it's the channel's first milestone, and it's a milestone that I've never hit so fast and didn't expect. I didn't expect to be here so soon after starting the channel, and just thank you all so much. The fact that I'm making something that you guys all want to stick around for and watch, it means so much to me. Thank you. And 1,000 views on Nimona, that is insane. I didn't expect that at all, especially just starting out the drawing part of my channel. Because a lot of the stuff that I started the channel, the first 5-ish videos were all like photo bashing and Photoshop, and then I did a few character designs and all that, and the digital painting stuff really did much better than Photoshop. The D&D character design, the Blood Red Riding Hood, those did really well. And so when I posted Nimona, I'm like, okay, that's a good ballpark that I'm expecting. And then it just kept going up, and I didn't really know how to process that. And then it hit 4 digits. It hit enough digits that YouTube couldn't even display it on the page anymore. It had to use letters. And I cannot express how thankful I am that you all made that happen. I didn't do that. I didn't sit here and refresh the page 1,000 times, because also that wouldn't actually count as views. You're awesome. You are all so awesome. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. Both milestones that we hit, it's not possible. I only create a catalyst for that. You all make those numbers possible. Thank you. And thank you, because I have so much fun doing this. And if you had fun too, feel free to like the video. You've already done so much, so you don't have to, but the option always remains. Thank you so much. And if you missed it, I'll put up part 1 of Nimona's superheroes here, and this is the second part. But that's all I got for you today. I'm KyngPin Creations, and I'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone.